Hello, this is Camel Convention, and welcome to my draft analysis for Season 5 of the Castelia Battle Network. Here I'll be going over the format for the season, as well as my thought process when drafting my roster. So this season we have 8 coaches, which I think is a nice number because it mitigates schedule RNG without dragging on the season. Top 4 playoffs as usual. Hopefully I don't get hacked out this time in semis, or finals for that matter. If I even make it at all. So we draft one Mon from the tiers S, A, B, C, D, and 5 Mons under 400 points. And since this is BGC, Omniterra makes sense, but Open Team Sheet is a bit weird for draft, so we have Terra Reveal Clause as kind of a middle ground because, having to guess Terra types is kind of obnoxious, so I think this is a good format for the season. So you'll immediately notice that I have Dozo Giri, and in my defense, I did not want to play against this, so I drafted it. And I had third pick, which I wanted to kind of have a plan going in, and I wasn't sure which S tiers would be taken, so I was kind of going in with the thought process of start with A tiers and then kind of stay ahead of the curve so I don't get sniped too much, and then draft my S tier at the very end. And this kind of worked out with Dozo Giri because I could take Dozo pick 3, and I assumed that nobody would waste an A tier slot on Tatsugiri just to grief me, which thankfully I was correct in that assumption. And then I would go for an S tier that I figured nobody would pick. And I was immediately thinking of Mew, because, our gimmick is that we allow mythicals, and I wanted to try something out. I had Marshadow a couple seasons ago, and that was fun, so I kind of wanted to do a repeat of having a mythical. And I've never used Mew in a doubles format before. I know that before it was really strong with fake out, and just good coverage and support and stuff, but this season this generation it doesn't get fake out, which is kind of a sizable nerf to it, but I think it has enough traits that makes it good that I wanted to draft it. And also for so I'm sure a lot of people saw the Wolfie VGC video of Flamigo plus self KO Tatsu, where you copy all the stats, and I didn't want to draft Flamigo just to have an overkill combo like that because Haze just ruins you, but I wanted to have something funny I could do. So I'm wait a minute, I can do Transform plus self KO Tatsu to have 2 Donbozo. I'm not sure if I'll end up going for that, but it is an option for meme potential. But anyway, I got Glamora because it's the core, it's the funny stall core, and it's also just a good mod in general. I love using this thing in singles on ladder, and just spreading poison is really nice. It actually hits really hard in its own right. If you do Terra Steel plus Sludge Wave, it's nice spread, and you can even do corrosion stuff. I'm not sure if I'll end up doing that in a doubles format. In singles you can just pretend that it's Salazzle and do the same thing, but it is possible if the opponent has a really fat steel or poison type, then I can do just protect spam plus corrosion Glamora, which would be kind of obnoxious, but it is an option. And then I wanted to I was kind of looking at Dozo comps that a lot of people were running just to kind of have a baseline, and I saw that a lot of people were using Palmot, and I don't really like Palmot that much. It's kind of frail, and Revival Blessing, I know that a lot of people say it's too broken for draft or whatever, but I'm a Revival Blessing hater, so I can't just take Palmot. I won't take that. So I was looking at other fighting types, and I saw Hariyama, which kind of fit perfectly because it has fake out like Palmot does, but it's a lot bulkier, and it gets wide guard. And I always like having a wide guard mod because It's just good for a prep standpoint. Like the opponent can't just be like, oh, I can click and make it rain like 3 times and win the game. So that always adds something to consider. And also I can do self KO with it. And I wanted one Mon at least to be able to do that, so I can run like fast taunt alongside the Dozo to stop like haze and stuff. So it ended up working pretty well. And it has guts and thick fat. I'm not sure if I'll be using sheer force, but it is an option. But the other two are nice options. And at this point, I was kind of thinking like, okay, so I have Dozogiri, but I need a secondary mode. And I was originally thinking Trick Room because like one of my like teams that I peaked the highest with was Dozogiri with Belly Bolt. I had a sloping version and an Oranguru version. So I was kind of thinking like do the same thing where I have like Belly Bolt Trick Room with Bulldoze Trick Room Slider. And Yama was slow enough to kind of benefit from Trick Room on that mode, so like okay, I kind of want to like start planning around this. So I got Bisharp next because it's kind of value. Like it's not that much worse than King Gambit, and it has good bulk with the Violet, but it's only a C tier, and King Gambit was A tier. So I'm like okay, yeah, like this is one of the best C tiers. I want to get this. It's nice against Intimidate, which Intimidate is a strong brain against Donbozo and Yama to some extent. So like, okay, this kind of fits. It doesn't get knockoff anymore, which kind of sucks, but it can still click like Iron Heads and Night Slashes and Assurance potentially. So it's kind of strong, and like I wanted a steal as well. I mean, I'm like the only person in the league who doesn't have a fairy, but Diancie got taken because it was C tier, and all the other fairies were like kind of shit. So I just went with like the partial core. I have Steel and then like kind of Dragon because like Tatsugiri isn't really a dragon, let's be honest. So I'm like, okay, I'll just stick with the Fire, Water, Grass. That's like a decent enough for like conventional draft standards, although we do have a Dozogiri here, so it kind of messes everything up. But yeah, so we got Bulky Steel, Bulky Dark is nice. And I was looking at Trick Room setters, and I thought about D tier Stantler, because I remember when I saw this thing was D tier, I'm like, wait a minute, Stantler is like really good, why is this thing D tier? That's like crazy value. So I made sure to pick that up fairly early so that it wouldn't get sniped, because it's very fat with Violet. I know that I can't run a Violet Bisharp and a Violet Stantler on the same team, but Bisharp doesn't need a Violet all the time. You can run like Black Losses or like Sash or like Resist Berry or whatever. But you can also run other items on Stantler, which like sure a Violet is going to be used most of the time for being a Trick Room setter, but you can do like Mental Herb or some other like supportive item, and it gets some solid support outside of Trick Room as well. But the main thing is that you can set Trick Room and it gets Bulldoze. And of course Belly Bolt, like if you Bulldoze the Belly Bolt, then you get Policy plus Electromorphosis, and then you just blow everything up with like Discharge and Parabolic Charge. I might end up killing my own Stantler in the process if I don't Terra Ground, but so yeah, it doesn't really matter if I self-KO the Stantler, because then I can bring in like Yama or Bisharp or even like Trick Room Donbozo, and in that case I can Terra Ground that or just use Protect, and that way we don't have like passive Stantler sitting around. Like Stantler can like Helping Hand, but it would usually prefer to just like Bulldoze again to trigger Electromorphosis unless the opponent does. So like that combo is like fairly tried and true. And then I was kind of like looking at filling stuff out. Like I kind of wanted Fire, Water, Grass. So I was looking at remaining C tiers, and I saw Cinderace, which kind of ended up working out because like basically everybody runs Meowscarada on Dozogiri, but Meowscarada is an A tier, and since Dozo and Tatsu are both A tiers, I like didn't have the option of taking another one. So I saw Cinderace, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like Walmart Meowscarada. Like, it gets Libero, it's fairly fast, it has taunt, and it has like pretty decent coverage. So, I think this thing will be solid. Like, I can also bring it as like a Revenger on the Trick Room mode, like for when Trick Room wears off. So, like, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this mon. It's just like fake Meowscarada. Then Belly Bolt, I already covered mostly. It's just like strong Trick Room nuke. I can bring it outside of Trick Room, as if I bring like a bulky set. It does actually function like that. I can do like Slack Off to give it sustain. So it can be like a win con in that regard. And of course it'll be running like Muddy Water or some form of Terra Blast for the ground types. Or I can use like Yamo or Dozo under Trick Room to like take them out and just like protect stall for a bit. So I don't think there's too much to say about Belly Bolt. And then at this point, so I knew I wanted the Mew, and I knew I had one F tier slot left, as I was planning on. And I wasn't sure what F tier to take, because of course it's F tier, like, and a lot of the, well, I shouldn't say a lot of the, Pachirisu was gone, which I have no idea why Pachirisu was F tier. That thing is crazy. But I was looking at what was left, and I was originally looking at Skiploom, because it's like, okay, it's a grass type, it gets like Memento and some support and Tailwind and whatever, but I knew I would already have U for Tailwind, and Skiploom, like, even if you get the support off, it's like extremely passive, like that is not doing anything. So I was looking at what I didn't have, and I didn't have a ground type either, so I'm like, okay, I might want a ground type just to like, be able to pair with Belly Bolt so I don't just like nuke all of my teammates. And then I saw Toadscool, and Toadscool is pretty nice. Like, it has Rage Powder, it has Spore, and it can also be a Trick Room setter. So now I'm like not locked into Stantler. So if I want to run like a Violite Bisharp and Stantler would kind of need the Violite to function, then I can do Sash Toadscool instead. And then I can do a similar thing with Belly Bolt. Like, I can't Bulldoze because Toadscool doesn't get Bulldoze for some reason, but I can like side Mud Shot or like whatever the best option it has is. I don't really remember off the top of my head. And it's not as passive as Skiploom because it's threatening Spore, and it has a bit more sustain. Like, I can actually run a Violet on this thing because it is pretty specially bulky, so I can run it like a fat redirector, which Skiploom can't really do. So I figured like it's a F tier. I'm not sure how often this thing is going to come, but it's at least something that people have to consider in prep, and I think that's the most I can expect from that slot. And then finally I have Mew. Like, I already talked about this thing earlier, but its move pool is kind of insane. Like, it does everything, and I wanted this thing as well for typing reasons because my team is kind of fighting weak without it. Like, I don't have a Ghost on here, my Grounded Poison is like neutral to fighting, and I have Bisharp and Stantler that are fighting weak, so it kind of rounds out everything. So even though I don't have a Fairy, my my coverage is like pretty fine defensively, and of course offensively I just like blow back everything with Dozo. So I think that about covers everything. Hopefully this team does well. I think it will because I have broken Donbozo Tatsugiri, so unless I like Omega Choke, then I should be able to make playoffs. Who knows? So that's it for the draft analysis, and I will see you in the Week 1 postcon.